All right, it's 2:01. I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone and welcome. I'm Sharon Brocker. I'm the founding member and the board chair of the Redmond Police Foundation. The Redmond Police Foundation is a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to support the law enforcement officers of the Police Department. Specifically, the foundation raises funds and we develop grants to deliver essential but non-budgeted items that provide for additional margin of excellence for the officers so that they can excel in community policing. In this way, the foundation provides a benevolent community with a means to partner with the police department and to support their local police department officials. We invite you to learn more about us at the Redmond Police Foundation website or check us out on Facebook. So if you're just joining us now, I see we've got another couple people. Welcome and welcome to Community Conversations with Redmond Police Chief Daryl Lowell. Welcome, Chief Lowell, and congratulations on your first one-year anniversary in Redmond and with the department.
Thank you, Sharon, and thank you to all the community members that are joining us here today. It's been a heck of a year for all of us with the pandemic and everything, and with all of the events that have occurred nationwide. It's been my privilege, my honor to lead the fine women and men of the Redmond Police Department and continue to provide the high level of service to the community that they've come to expect from this organization.
Thank you. Well, Chief Lowell, I'm looking at who our attendees are, and I believe that many of them have yet to meet you. And especially in a pandemic year, I know that's a little bit more challenging. I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind taking a moment or two to share with us a little bit about yourself, your background, and why you chose the Pacific Northwest as home.
Great, Sharon, thank you. So for those of you that have not had the opportunity to meet me, I'm Daryl Lowell. I'm your police chief. I've been here for about 14 months now. I did the other 27 years of my law enforcement career in Southern California, specifically in the community of Santa Monica. So I left the Santa Monica Police Department as a captain in October of last year and took over the reins of the Redmond Police Department. It was, as I said, an honor and a privilege to be given the opportunity to lead this organization. And what drew me, to Redmond was the opportunity to become a police chief, because that's what I had worked essentially my entire professional career towards, and then just the opportunity that Redmond presented to me as a law enforcement executive. As this community knows, Redmond is a growing, thriving community, and to be given the opportunity to protect and serve a community like that as the head of a law enforcement organization was a phenomenal opportunity that I could not pass up. There are a lot of similarities between Redmond and Santa Monica, one of which is not sunshine, because I left in sunshine for many days for the Pacific Northwest. But a lot of the demographics, a lot of the growth, a lot of the development that Redmond has and will experience in the years to come are things that are familiar to me from a law enforcement perspective. And then probably the biggest change that we have coming to our community in about the next 15 months is a light rail system. Very similar in Santa Monica, we had a light rail system that reactivated after about a 47-year absence, and that significantly changed some dynamics within that community. And I firmly believe that it was my experience with light rail returning to a municipality and that experience as a law enforcement executive that allowed me to be the best candidate for this particular job and for this particular opportunity. And then when my wife and I came here to Redmond during the recruitment process, we really did, I won't say fall in love with the town, but we really felt a connection to the town. It was, I described it as a storybook, because as you drive around, you could see the growth and development, but as you got a little further to the outskirts and into some of the neighborhoods, it really was, like storybook. Obviously, it's a thriving town. It's a clean town. As we walked around, the town center area and downtown area, we really felt, warmed and welcomed. And that was very important because clearly the individuals who we came in contact with at that time had no idea, who I was or why I was there. I was just another person, in the Redmond community. But again, everybody was, warm, welcoming, and friendly. And I'm happy to say that, over these last 13 months, pandemic and everything, it remains that way. This is a warm, welcoming, and inviting community, which is very important, for me and for those that live, play, and work in Redmond.
Thank you. Well, one of the things that you have particularly is that you have such incredible experience coming out from your last agency in Santa Monica and working with light rail, and that's part of the topic of today's conversation. So I just want to kind of bring us back to how do you see the Redmond Police Foundation preparing for the arrival of light rail, and what as citizens should we as citizens expect in terms of public safety when it does arrive?
So with light rail, it will definitely change Redmond, and I believe it will change us for the better, right? From a transportation perspective, it provides a transportation alternative other than, vehicle or single occupancy vehicles. So it has environmental aspects, it has a time saving aspect. You can get, essentially from Redmond across the bridge into Seattle, et cetera, in a much shorter time period than by car. But I think also what it will do for the business community, for the downtown community, once the final station is developed there, it will actually allow for I'll say growth and development in the area of like restaurants and other opportunities. One of the some of the feedback that you get from community folks is there's no nightlife in Redmond per se, right? There's nothing to do after 5 o'clock. So with the rail system, that will allow some of the other businesses perhaps in downtown and the town center to activate some more after hours types of things, because individuals don't have to worry about sitting in traffic and driving, or drinking and driving if they decide to have, a cocktail after work with, friends or colleagues, that type of thing. So I think those are some of the big things and changes that we will see. I know some have fears and concerns about potential increases in crime that will be a result of light rail. And it's not the crime train as some people may want to refer to it as, or have those concerns. Yes, there may be some changes as it relates to calls for service for the police department, but it's really important for us as the terminus city to work very closely with our partners over at Sound Transit and in King County and develop a collaborative process and approach to dealing with infractions or things that may occur on the train. I'm a firm believer that I'll say fair enforcement or a lack of fair evasion is an area that we need to have conversation with before it actually goes operational, because in my experience, that is probably one of the easiest and best deterrents to individuals who may choose to go to other municipalities and use the train as their transportation mode. If there is some type of like fair enforcement or fair checking, that will have a big deterrent effect to any negative effects potentially for us in Redmond.
Is that some of the things that you saw from coming out of Santa Monica? Is that was some of the strategies that were used in order to fight crime or at least manage it?
Yeah, so that was one of the aspects that we looked at. The rail system in Santa Monica started in downtown Los Angeles. It ended there and went through several different communities. And it's very difficult to pinpoint the correlation between the train and crime. There are crime analysis methods that can be utilized to kind of look at areas around train stations, be it 500 yards, 1,000 yards, those types of things. But it's really hard to make a direct correlation. So that's why I caution the conversation around it being a crime train or something like that, because the reality of it is from, I'll say from a criminal perspective, yes, you may be able to use that train for ingress and egress, but at the same time, you're in a train on a rail system. So if you do something, there's a description, well, you get to the next station, there's no way to get off or get away from it. So that's not the most opportune method for transportation for someone who would want to engage in criminal activity. And not that this is a crime training video, but those are just some of the true realities of it. But it's like anything else. It's no different than what we have right now in collaboration with our other law enforcement partners. It's about communication. It's about letting each other know what's occurring in each other's jurisdiction, so we can be a support and a force multiplier, for those law enforcement agencies around us.
Fantastic. I'd also like to open up the conversation to the audience for anybody who has questions. There is a question and answer window down here. If you'd like to type a question in, please feel free to do that. We'll see if we can't get that answered. So, Chief, in Santa Monica, did you use canines as part of the force that was used to protect and monitor the stations?
We did. So in my former jurisdiction, canines were a part of the overall patrol strategy. In that particular location, not only did they have a train system, but they had a iconic municipal pier in a very vibrant downtown area. Obviously, pre-pandemic, much like our town center. So that is a tool that was utilized as part of the overall protection strategy.
Okay. Was that a canine explosive sniffing dog?
Yes.
Okay.
So so that the strategy down there consisted of yes, a bomb sniffing dog, or as well as regular canine as well. But a regular canine is typically used for other type of police work, whereas specifically what's referred to as the bomb dog is there specifically for explosives, firearms, and different things of that nature. So it's not just bombs. The dog has other capabilities, but all of those capabilities center around gunpowder or explosive types of substances.
Okay. Is this going to be a shared resource with the King County, or is this going to be a more of a Redmond asset that we utilized more in Redmond and probably Bellevue?
So this will be, it will be a, I'll say Redmond specific asset, but the asset will be available regionally.
Right.
Much like now, if there was a need for a bomb dog, we could reach out to our other law enforcement partners that currently have a operational program right now. They would send the dog and the handler out, and then they would scan or do whatever it was that we would potentially be looking for. So it would be our asset, but it would be available to other municipalities if the need arose.
So looks like we have a question coming in from Brian Tuscan. When light rail arrives in Santa Monica, did you see any types of crimes / incidences go up or down? Was there any significant change in the city because of the rail?
So I don't, as I kind of alluded to before, it's very difficult to pinpoint specifically crime and a direct correlation to the rail system. Now, if the crime occurs on the train versus if it occurs on the platform or in the, I'll say in the city proper, and that's where you start kind of splitting hairs and getting into whose jurisdiction. Is it technically, if it's on the train, that belongs to Sound Transit? If it's on the platform, depending upon how the local agreements are written, that could be ours or it could be theirs. So typically, when crime occurred. If it was on the platform or in the city, it belonged to the municipality. If it occurred on the train, then it belonged to the rail system. In Los Angeles, that belonged to the LA County Sheriff, so they would be responsible for those. So no, there was not a specific crime or a direct correlation between the train and crime, in my former jurisdiction.
Will there be a visible police presence at each one of the two stations in Overlake?
So as I understand it, since those stations, as they come online, will be the termination points. As I understand it, Sound Transit or King County has private security that will be at those particular stations. So a lot of these operational questions and decisions, those conversations have not started as of yet. As it relates to Redmond and what our response or resource allocation will be for the rail system. Again, we have not started to lay out specific strategies for that just yet. Right now, we are currently in our budget process. Given the pandemic and economic circumstances, we are not looking at increasing the staffing of the police department during this current biennium. But moving forward, that will be a conversation that we will clearly need to have, with the electeds, with the mayor's office, and then with the conversation around reimagining police, and do you actually need an armed commissioned police officer to deal with a lot of, I'll say, non-violent or lower level criminal offenses. I have some ideas and strategies that I and my command staff will start to develop at the first part of the year as to exactly what that looks like. Previously, we had positions known as police service officers. So those were limited commissioned positions, meaning that they were not armed officers. They were uniformed employees of the police department that could perform certain tasks. That would be an option. There's another option that I have in mind to utilize more of an ambassador type of approach or program. So as we start to have these conversations and start to collaborate with some of our other departments to see really what that looks like, because it doesn't have to be a police officer necessarily. It needs to be someone that can be the eyes and ears for the police department, but that represents the bigger vision and bigger picture for Redmond as a destination.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned the budget and that Redmond's currently in the budget process. Is there any updates that you could share with us in terms of how it might impact the police department or staffing?
So at this point, no, because we just finished up last night with the police specific budget offer. What I can share with the community is we did present a balanced budget to council, both the entire budget and the police department budget specifically. It did not include any staff, any elimination of current staff. Overall, there has been a hiring freeze within the city because of our economic circumstances, but that has not impacted our ability to, provide the same level of service to the community. What it's done for us is essentially slowed down to a degree our background process or our recruiting process to bring, new people on board. And then as we move forward, like I said, once a budget is approved and adopted and we get into 2021, at that point in time, my staff can actually start to forecast a little bit better and more clearly what the future looks like and what our future needs and asks will be.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have another question coming up, but before we go to Ed's question, I just want to say thank you so much for the people who work so diligently to support the Redmond Police Foundation. We couldn't do the work we did without the support that they provide us. Jim and Connie Olson of Service Master of Redmond have generously given us $10,000 in a matching fund, and they have become Redmond's first community pace setters. And so we'd like to give a shout out to them and say thank you for giving us that matching grant and for us to be able to do that work. So let's go now to the question from Ed. His question is, how is fare enforcement handled in Santa Monica?
So with the rail system, that is a regional approach. So within Santa Monica was not responsible for fare enforcement, much like we have Sound Transit up here. They are responsible for the operation of the rail system. So it would depend upon what they have in place. Unfortunately, I'm not up to speed with how they currently operate presently. But when we start having those conversations about it going operationally and coming into Redmond, that will be an area of discussion for us. So, I better understand what they do or don't do, and then be able to offer suggestions for, how they might go about doing that, understanding that it's not a Redmond specific thing. And if that is not consistent with essentially what their governing body supports or will allow, then it can't happen just because, Redmond or the Redmond police chief think it has fair enforcement. But it's something that I will bring to the conversation because, again, I believe that is a critical, aspect in the rail system, just overall. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a revenue generating, operation. And if an individual, is riding the rail and not paying for it, then that obviously has an impact, on their bottom line. So I would hope, they would see the value in it, but at the same time, understanding that, we are not looking, nor am I suggesting, a way of criminalizing, other individuals or criminalizing minor offenses. So it's not enforcement from a criminalization perspective. And then, like I said, depending on what they have in place, it could be some type of a warning system, a graduated system where you get, a certain number of warnings before there is enforcement. So there's some complexities and nuance to it, but there just should be some aspect of fair enforcement, in my opinion.
Is fair enforcement currently handled by the Sound Transit?
Unfortunately, like I said, I don't know
Okay.
their operational parameters.
Okay. Okay. Let's see. You have another question? No. Let me change subjects a little bit. Redmond Police Department has a full-time mental health professional. I believe she was recently added. How can you tell us a little bit about that program and how you see that person working with some of the issues that may come up with the light rail situation?
Yes, no, I apologize. There was a street sweeper or something passing by. So we were very fortunate before I got here. The department had been given a grant from WASPIC, which is the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs, and was able to bring on a mental health professional to embed within the police department and go out, with officers on calls. I realized the value, in that particular program. We had a similar program in my previous jurisdiction, so I was already aware of it, the value of it, how it operated. Once I got here and saw how we were doing it, I knew that I had to find a way to get either Susie Crowler's name, to either get Susie full-time with us or to get a full-time mental health professional, because it is such a critical need, because the vast majority of the calls that we go on involve a person in crisis. I apologize to my dogs. My alarm system, right? Speaking to K9.
I thought that was Griff.
No, it is not. They're little noisemakers, but they do their job very well. So with Miss Kroll, it was important to bring her on full time because I realized the value of it. And if I didn't get her, I realized that other departments would. Excuse me one second. Let me deal with my noisemakers here.
Got a little de-escalation going on. Well, while the chief is not with us, I continue to invite the audience to type in any questions that you have on the Q&A. There's a Q&A button down here. And so we'd love to have as much community participation as possible. And
all right, I'm back. Crisis averted.
Good. Well, before we go to another one, I just want to also say thank you to B.E. Myers. B.E. Myers and company has been generous, and they have become community sponsors and supporting the Redmond Police Foundation and also supporting the purchase of the canine. So thank you, B.E. Myers. And we do have a question online. Someone says you guys are doing great work.
So I'm sorry, but I know we got interrupted by my noise-makers. So with the mental health professional, so I thought it was very important to bring her on full time because it's an invaluable asset and tool for us to use. She's very well received by our patrol staff, very well received by the community, and understanding that, like I said, a majority of the individuals that we come in contact with are in some form of crisis. Not that, everybody has a mental health issue, but it could just be emotional crisis. And while, we do have a lot of training around, de-escalation and different things like that, that is not our true area of expertise. So I was able at the end of last year with the retirement of one of the retirement of a digital forensic investigator, I was able to reallocate that funding to bring her on board full time. But I'm also happy to report that we were awarded the WASPIC grant again this year. So at this point, I'm looking to bring on another mental health professional in a part-time capacity, so we can at least have additional coverage available. Because what the challenge is, with mental health in social services in general, for that matter, is that they're available generally Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. So at midnight, 2 o'clock on a Saturday night, there are no social services available. But by having a mental health professional with us, she has access to other resources that a person may need. But more important, what we realize is that you have officers who observe and document things when a person is in crisis, and they can, yes, take them in for treatment voluntarily or involuntarily. Oftentimes what happens is the person is seen and they're released in a very short period of time, because I'm a firm believer in the fact that we don't speak the language of the medical or the mental health profession. When you have a mental health professional, they can actually speak in more specific and diagnostic terms, so that the providers on the other end, actually understand better, what the problem or circumstance is, and can treat appropriately. And I think that that's very, very important. But also in the area of mental health, we are also exploring another grant that is another grant opportunity that the state is providing to enhance and expand not only our program, but to be a resource in the region for mental health providers. Because as we've been looking for this part-time person to supplement what we currently have, I'm coming to find out that there are very few, if any, what I'll call field-ready mental health providers. There are a number of individuals in various stages of training, but they don't have the required, I'll call it field time or field certification. So what I'm looking to do, if awarded this particular grant, is to utilize the certifications that Ms. Kroll has, as well as we have our homeless outreach coordinator, Tizza Rutherford. That they, both of them, they have similar and different credentials, but the combination of their two sets of credentials could allow us to become what I'll call a training location for mental health providers to get their certification to be deployable into the field. So that would help not just Redmond, but to help the region, because this is not just a Redmond problem. This is realistically a nationwide problem, but let's just call it a regional problem, within King County and on the east side. So looking to, like I said, not only enhance our presence with it, but to be a resource for the region.
I don't know if you've seen the movie Ernie and Joe, but one of the things that they had talked about was more of the training for the officers to receive some training with mental health counseling. And I'm wondering if Redmond Police Department has given any thought to that, is adding additional training for the officers as well to support them as they go on these calls.
Yeah, so in addition to Susie's role as a co-responder with patrol officers, part of her job spec, if you will, is to provide that ongoing training. So I was able to structure her position that it's not solely or exclusively a co-response field model. It's also, I'll say, a management / administration model, because of these, goals to expand our program and to be a regional asset. But she is also tasked with providing training to the officers, which she has done, in the time that she's been here. So both that, in their briefings, but then also in our in-service training. So each officer is required to complete a minimum of 24 hours of additional training on a variety of subjects each year. So mental health is one of those areas, and will continue to be, as is implicit bias training, which will occur in our 2021 in-service training regimen.
That's fantastic. How does that dovetail with or correlate with some of the de-escalation training that the officers get?
So the de-escalation training starts in the academy, and it continues on an ongoing basis. So it's not one and done. As part of those 24 hours, I believe it's 4 hours of that 24 is for de-escalation training specifically. And then I know that our sergeants and corporals, when they do the roll call training, they will actually use scenarios or videos, that YouTube and the like, to talk about de-escalation training, or talk about circumstances that weren't de-escalated, so we can kind of walk through. We can walk through it. So de-escalation is something that occurs continuously and ongoing.
Okay, thank you. The bike unit. How do you see the bike unit being more involved? Do we see there being an additional bike unit that is going to be out and about on the streets?
So the bike unit is very beloved, very popular. So we just will be adding 5 additional officers, not to the bike unit to make it a 10-person unit, but 5 additional officers to be bike trained, because our bike unit is also our primary crowd management unit. So to be able to have sufficient resources for those types of events, and not just protests or like, but other public or large outside gatherings once we get back to that point. So yes, I'll continue to look to expand it for sure in a collateral perspective. As far as the number of folks on the unit that you see out and about, we did just advertise yesterday for opening on the unit. So we will increase by 1. So it'll be a 6-person unit as of January. And then, like I said, there'll be 5 additional officers that will be collaterally trained. So at that point, that will put us over a dozen officers that will have the ability to deploy on bicycles.
So do you see a bike unit that's over at the Overlake area and that area, and then there's another one that's more downtown area, or maybe even a satellite station over closer to the Overlake area?
Yeah, so that is part of my vision for the department moving forward. I'll say folks in my administration have come to hear me refer to Overlake as the island. right? So, previously, I won't say currently because obviously congestion, traffic, et cetera, is a lot lighter than what it previously was. But yes, I am looking at Overlake as almost a standalone sector within the city. There has been some conversation in regards to potentially a substation down in the Overlake area. We're very thankful to Microsoft. They have provided over the years some working space for officers, in one of their facilities. There's some conversation in their new flex potentially about also having access to workspace, which is very much appreciated. But there's also conversation within the city about city facilities down in Overlake, because it's not just a police perspective, but for our residents and our business folks down in Overlake, it can be quite the trek to come to the municipal campus for a variety of city services. So we have to look at it holistically, from a city about do we make a satellite, I wouldn't call it city hall, but satellite services that can be made available down in Overlake, which may include space, for the police department. I know we're right now in the recruitment for a fire chief, and I know we do have a fire station that technically is outside of the city limits of Redmond, and there's some conversation about moving that into Redmond proper. So there may be an opportunity at that point in time to have it as a public safety facility, to have space, for the police department as well. So yes, we are looking at a variety of options to make sure that we have appropriate service and response times in Overlake.
Fantastic. One more question about the bike unit, but before I do, I'd like to go ahead and thank Jim and Nancy Krim for their generous donation in helping us raise funds for the canine. And I'd also like to say a huge thank you to Pavel and the staff over at Nexus Realty for hosting this show and for helping us to have all the technical capabilities that we do in order for today. So thank you very much. So one more question we'd like to ask about the bike unit is how does the bike unit actually help patrol?
So the bike unit helps patrol in the sense of they at times are faster, more nimble, to be able to get to calls. And then they are also very, very much the face of our homeless outreach. And I won't say community engagement because I have a specific community engagement unit, but they do a lot of community engagement type of work because they are more accessible. It's easy to flag down an officer or have a conversation with an officer on a bicycle as opposed to an officer driving by, in a patrol car. So that they really are I'll say out amongst the people, I'll say more easily than an officer, assigned to a patrol vehicle.
And so I have a question. How have you previously worked with police foundations, such as the Redmond Police Foundation, and how have they been helpful to you and your staff?
So in my prior jurisdiction, we did not have the benefit of a police foundation. So I didn't have any firsthand experience working with the foundation. I'm familiar with foundations just based on a lot of the volunteer work that my wife did down in Southern California. But since I've been here, it's been a great developing and working relationship with the police foundation. Prior to my arrival, the foundation already existed, and they had already been very instrumental in helping out members of the department, in various ways. One of the grants that the foundation has provided and continues to provide to the department is for emergency housing for domestic violence victims. That is a tremendous benefit that we may not otherwise be able to provide if not for the generous donation from the foundation, as has been acknowledged during this conversation. And I'm very grateful and appreciative to the foundation for sharing in my vision for the expansion of the canine program and the monies raised and allocated, for my vision and my pursuit, of a bomb dog. It's things like that that it is the relationship and the benefit of having a foundation. And as we continue to grow and as the foundation continues to grow and develop, to by other needs and things that both the foundations board and I and my executive team can identify to benefit and supplement the women and men of the police department.
Well, it's a real honor. Thank you so much for allowing us to be a partner with the police department and support all of the officers and the staff. So I want to begin to wrap this up. We do have one more question or communication, and I'm going to not pronounce this name well, so I apologize in advance. It's Anila. And it says, hello, this is Anila with the Muslim Association of Puget Sound, which is the largest Islamic center in Washington and based in Redmond. We would like to thank Chief Lowell and his team for working with us to address safety. In Chief Lowell's first week on the job, he was tested right away with threats from protesters planning to show up at MAPS to intimidate Muslim community members. Chief Lowell and his team, along with our neighbors, friends, and allies, worked with us on a safety plan to ensure safety for all. Since then, when we at MAPS have had threats or suspicious circumstances, including this week with social media posts, Chief Lowell's team has promptly investigated and taken action to ensure the safety and well-being of all. So thank you for that. And special shout out to Captain Tim Gately, Lieutenant Julie Beard, and amongst others, including Captain Eric Scarpin, who has now joined Marysville as the chief. The final question she has is, the question I have is related to mental health training and de-escalation. But since those were already addressed, I'll ask, what are the biggest threats to safety and security from your perspective in Redmond, especially to marginalized community members? And what is Redmond Police doing to address such concerns? And what advice do you have the community members to address such concerns?
Okay. So I don't believe that there is a specific threat to marginalized communities. I believe that, as unfortunately we've seen, threats present themselves in a number of different ways, depending upon the fixation or ideology of the person, making the threats. What I would encourage everyone to do is, as they say, if you see something, say something. If something doesn't seem right, please give us a call and let us know. Let us evaluate it. Let us reach out to our other law enforcement partners to make sure that the threat, be it perceived or real, let us vet it out, and then we will take the appropriate action based upon that. Redmond is a welcoming place for all. And again, if anyone has any concerns about threats or any concerns about their safety or their well-being, again, please reach out to us. I have a community engagement unit that can come out to your home and do home security assessments. We can do business assessments. We can do just personal safety conversations. I won't call it a class, but we can just have conversations with individuals to point out some things to them that may not be, I'll say at the forefront of their thought process. That is, and this is what we do. We are a public safety entity. We are here for all. And again, if anyone has any concerns, feel free to reach out. We are here 24/7, 365. It is never a problem to call. It could be a problem if you don't call, right? We do not want, those types of events occurring in Redmond. Hate and things like that will not be tolerated. We will, in fact, investigate, and we will take the appropriate action.
Chief Lowell, thank you so much for spending this time with us and for taking this time to answer our questions. It's been a real honor and a privilege. Anybody, if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to contact@redmondpolicefoundation.org. And you can certainly go to the website there to learn more about the foundation, its work, and to make a donation. So again, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Good. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Goodbye.